Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the podcast, Grow Up Already. Back with another episode. I'm actually really excited about the guest I have today. But first, I just wanted to say thank you for all the support thus far. And if you can, again, guys, it means a lot if you just leave a comment. I mean, hopefully they're good comments, but leave a comment. I know some of you guys have. That's cool. But again, if you're listening, I know a lot of people are listening while they're working or driving, but it helps, man. Leave a comment, honestly. And then also, since the last two episodes, I know I was only on Spotify, and some people like Spotify, but I'm also on Apple. So if you got an iPhone, which is like 98% of everyone, you already have the podcast app. All you got to do is go in, literally type in Grow Up Already. You'll see my goofy picture with the flowers, and hit subscribe. And we're in there like swimwear. But I'm also, like I said, on Spotify. I'm on Pandora. Never listen to podcasts on Pandora, but I'm on Pandora, Stitcher, all of that good stuff. And also, the podcast is called Grow Up Already, and it's a career-driven podcast and, talking to people and all that good stuff. If you have a business, a charity, a fundraiser, etc., if you have a GoFundMe for you and your booze cruise, I didn't say booze cruise, I mean, yo boo, your woman or your man, and you guys are going on a cruise or I don't care, whatever the charity is what I'm saying. Let me know, message me. I'll bring you on as a guest if you want to shout out your project, whatever you got going. Again, if you got a fundraiser or something like that, if your kid's trying to sell candy bars, may not be able to help you out. But, businesses specifically, if you're starting up a project or a passion project, they say, I'd love to hear from you and hear the story of how it came about, all that good stuff. And, we all have a lot of friends. I have a lot of friends. Some may be in higher places than I know of and than you know of. So it would behoove you not to use this podcast as an avenue for that. And I don't mind, as long as you're not, I don't know, making fur coats out of puppy hair. I think we can support you. Anyhow, or if you just like to be a guest, hit me up, message me, let me know. I've gotten a lot of people that'll say, I don't think I have much to say. You do. You don't know it yet, but you do. And as you'll see through these podcasts, and this episode will be no different, I don't pull any punches. There's no surprise Jerry Springer guest. I always say that, I'm not going to bring out your estranged parent and say, actually, they're online too. None of that stuff. Just us having fun and talking about positive stuff. So if you're all for the positivity and no F-bombs, we're there. Anyhow, today's guest is my very good friend and sister from another mister, Miss Stella Crawford, or Maria. Hey, Stella.
Hello there.
All right.
Hello. I am very excited to be here today.
Cool. Let me ask you, Stella, do you know how this podcast works?
I do. Okay. I do.
All right, cool. Not a stranger to the podcast. Well, I'm going to ask you the same question I ask everyone to get this ball rolling. What did you want to be when you were growing up?
Well, when I was growing up, and I think it was probably about like 12, 13, around that time, I think I started to have like a strong interest in like fashion. Like I thought I wanted to be a fashion designer. I love like clothing and fabrics and like, putting things together and just like the entire creative aspect of everything. But I always, like, from very early on, really enjoyed fashion. And so when I was a little girl, that's what I wanted to be. Like I took, fashion classes in high school.
Oh, did you really?
I did. I went through like full classes of like doing design. I never got into the like actual sewing piece of it. But I did take some classes, and at that time I thought like that would be what I would be pursuing.
I see. I see. What, if I can ask,
Sure.
so you wanted to go into fashion. Well, yeah, let's ask that question. I think I know what you do nowadays, but what do you do now?
Now I am a manager of network engineering. I'm
Aha.
in the tech industry, and it's in complete contrast from from what I thought I was gonna be doing.
I see. I see. Now with fashion, like you said, complete contrast. What changed with fashion? I always say dreams are free, right? Until we, you know, realize how much it's going to cost us. And sometimes that's literally financially or just mental space wise, or, or that we just lost interest in it. It could be anything. But what changed with
I think
not doing fashion?
I think what changed sometimes is sometimes I think you're led to things and you don't know then. You don't understand it then. Like you don't even know, like I remember there were times when I just didn't even understand like how I ended up where I ended up, and I didn't see like what I was doing there. I didn't know my purpose yet. Early on, like all of my work was like in retail. Like I started out in, retail after high school.
Ooh, ooh, ooh. Where did you work? Where did you work?
I worked at the Gap. I worked at Contempo. I worked at a store called. I worked, at a movie theater. Like,
Did you
just
really?
everything I did. But so my very, very first job was definitely like at a movie theater in Westwood, in
Oh,
California.
what
And
theater in Westwood? What, like the Man Theater?
yes, it was the Man Theater, and it was great. It was absolutely wonderful. It was a great experience. I liked it because like I could invite 8 of my friends to the movies for free. Um, you got free popcorn and free sodas as a part of the perk. You know what I mean? So I really enjoyed it, and I also adversely got to meet a lot of celebrities working there. So that was really
Oh
cool.
yeah, because you're in Westwood.
Yes, yeah,
For people not from California, Westwood is like the west side of LA, and that's where a lot of celebrities. You might have some B-list people that live in Westwood, but just adjacent to that is your Beverly Hills, all those things.
yes.
If you've ever watched Curb Your Enthusiasm, people out there, this is the area she's speaking of. It's the west side of LA. So yeah, I can imagine you must have met a lot of people. How old were you at this time?
I was like 16. I think I was probably around like 16 at that time. And it was
Oh, so
great. Like it was some pretty big celebrities,
like who?
and we like Prince was there one time.
Shut up. You met
Um
Prince?
I did well, I didn't meet him. I saw him. I
Really?
did like we
What did
saw
he buy
him.
a ticket to see? Say
I
Ernest
don't
Saves Christmas.
oh God, I don't remember what movie. Like the only movie I can remember seeing a lot at that time was Pet Cemetery. Because
Oh,
it's like
okay. You
because
put a little
because
time stamp on that. She's not talking about the remake, you guys.
I'm not talking about the remake, no. And
OG.
so, like, yeah, so I don't remember what movie he came to see. I just remember we had to go through a lot to just ensure. Like, I almost want to say he got to only bring the people he came with and have like a private,
Oh my gosh.
like screening of whatever he was watching. And we had to he had to come up through like a back elevator. So like you saw him, but we didn't get to like approach him, and we weren't, of course they didn't want you like bothering the customers, and
Right,
especially, you
right.
know what I mean? Yeah. So he came in with like an entourage and then watched his movie. And then if he wanted popcorn or anything like that, they just took it into the theater.
Oh, of
And so I
course.
only got to like see him coming and going, and that was it. Cause he went down like a special, elevator and all of that.
Trip
Um,
out. Huh.
yeah.
That's
And then
like
I got to,
my mind is like, okay, what album was that, or albums? That had to be Pet Cemetery was like 92. I still lived in LA at that time. It was before I moved to the Dale, good old Palmdale. So yeah, that was Diamonds and Pearls days. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh
MTV
yeah,
Music Awards when he turned around with his yellow suit on and his booty out. But yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that was the
And
real
then
Prince. Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was, and then I got to meet like Martin Sheen, gave me like a huge tip.
Oh, nice.
And that was pretty cool, or you know what I mean? So there were some large celebrities that came in. So that was always like really cool, to something I was not expecting.
Wow.
And yeah, and then from there, I started getting into like retail. I even work, I'm sorry. So before the Gap, I worked at Sears. And I forgot to mention that. So I worked at Sears.
Hey, it's all good.
Exactly. I worked at Sears, and then I worked at the Gap, and then I worked at Contempo. And then I started, and all of those were just like, just, basic, just, cashier and working the floor and being in sales. I definitely enjoyed working at the Gap because we got like great discounts on clothing, and I liked their clothing, so I was able to like put all these looks together and whatnot, and they would give us these massive discounts because they wanted us to wear their clothes. So that was a great experience. And then I went on to work at a store called the White House at the time, and they're now called the White House Black Market, but
That's
at
what I
that
was
time it
about to
was just
say.
the White House.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And and that's where I think, like, when I bring the story forward, it'll all kind of make sense. But I was given a lot of like autonomy there, and so that led me into like getting promoted and getting into being like an assistant manager, and then after that a manager. And they also had me traveling like to other stores to kind of like start up the stores.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was, and I was only like, I was in my early 20s at this point, but being given that responsibility and kind of training with like a regional manager, that definitely kind of like matured me a little bit and gave me some like better working experience, like overall.
I understand that. I spent my
Yeah.
years in retail as well, with Express, Bath and Body, same company.
Yeah.
But that hands-on, that more, like you said, more autonomy, that came from a place I worked for called Leathertown, which no one's probably ever heard of unless it was a privately owned company. But it was these two Armenian guys, and they owned it. And they're probably 10 years older than me, I believe, at the time. And I learned everything, like about markup on, how much it cost. They would get the jackets from Turkey, the types of leather, like things that nobody's walking around with leather trench coats anymore, but just leather as a whole, like there's a lot that goes into that stuff. But as far as owning your own business, I learned a lot from those dudes. So yeah, when I left there and went to Express. I was there for 3 or 4 years. I left and went to Express. It was a cakewalk because they didn't have to know anything. Like I knew how much the jacket should be marked up. I knew what kind of discount I could give. Like they just, it was so spoon fed at Express. Like they had this well-oiled machine that they just thought I was something more than what I actually was. At Leathertown, I was just a employee, but at Express, they were like, "Oh, we're going to give you your own store out in Thousand Oaks at the Oaks Mall."
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then same thing, like they flew me out to Vegas to help start a store out there. For the age that I was at the time, how old was I? 20. That was right around the time I met you.
Probably.
Gosh, I don't know. I was like 24, something like that. But anyhow, sorry, go on.
No, you're fine. No, you're totally fine. But yeah, like those experiences like that definitely, like I think a lot of me grew in that space and it was helpful. So then I had a boyfriend at the time. We'd been together for 11 years and I was pregnant at that time.
Ah.
And so my boyfriend's sister, she worked in the cable industry.
Oh.
And she was like, like you really need to get out of retail because of the hours. You know what I mean? Like working during the holidays. Yes, working the holidays, getting off at
the
1 a.m. in the morning during the holidays. And it was the worst.
You're working a 10 to 7 and be like, what, Saturday?
Yeah, on a Saturday.
And that was the cool shift on a Saturday. I'm like, oh, cool, I can still go out. Yeah. Oh, gosh, I don't miss that. I really don't.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-mm.
And so she told me, she said, like I would really like you to come work for, my company. She's like, I'm in, telecommunications, and I think it would be like a really good fit for you. And I just did not see how I could fit there. I did not see, but I knew that like my life needed to change at that point. I had a responsibility ahead of me, and,
right.
and I had to make some changes that was going to now be able to accommodate this new path that my life was about to take. And and so I took her up on it, and I went to the interview. And I remember being in there, and I had to, they were like, tell us about your successes. And I had to kind of get into like the business part of like what I was doing. And I didn't realize like how helpful that experience was going to be in this completely different industry. And so he wanted to hear about those things, because that's kind of what they based hiring me on, was kind of like, is this person, capable? What kind of skill set do they have? And do they make good decisions,
Yeah.
And so that definitely helped a lot. And she told me, she was like, you killed the interview. And I was like, what? Like, oh my goodness, this is such a stark contrast from where I've been. I thought I was going to like keep growing in leadership, in retail, and try to be, a regional manager, and then continue to move up in the retail into buying and selling or things of that nature.
Yeah.
So that was kind of where I thought I was going to go.
Did you, hold on, with retail, I'm curious, because I saw this when I worked for Express. Express was like the first real corporate company, retail-wise, that I worked for. You just said something. You said you thought you were going to grow in that, what is it, district, then regional, then what is it, like, regionals,
being a buyer.
That was the job. We never saw those people. That was I just heard about them, like, ooh, how do you do that? Oh man. I noticed something when I worked for Express. I remember one day me and my manager and another co-manager, they called it at Express, we're standing there, just a random Thursday, and she was kind of saying the same thing, that manager, just her plan, her 5-year plan or 10-year plan.
Yeah.
And I looked around and I said, hey, I got a question for you. I said, have you ever realized, we're all at this time in our 20s. I said, you ever realize, besides the lady that we hired, so because she really loves the store and wants to get the discount, there's nobody, she was like 60. There's nobody upper management wise or any wise in the company over like had to be 50. I mean, because I was 23, 24, so a 40-year-old looked like they were 60 to me. So like, but there was no one with gray hair, I'll say that much. And she was like, yeah, I've noticed that. And I said, well, what does that tell you? You had the CEO, I believe her title was Mary Jo Pyle. I still remember her from the conference calls. You can actually catch her on an episode of, it's on Magnolia, on Discovery Plus. She's no longer with the company now. She owns her own store somewhere in the upper side of New York. Anyway.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's dope. Anyway, let me stop because I'm going to be guilty of the stories. But no, I asked her, I said, okay, so you want to be a regional and all this stuff. I said, that's a lot of responsibility. I said, but nobody's old. Like, we're in our 20s. We're going to be working for the next 30, 40 years, most likely. I don't see any of those people besides the Mary Jo Pyle lady. She was already a little older back then. And she was like, you could hear the that squeak in her brain. She was like, no, I've been trying to ignore that. Like, you could see it in her eyes. And I said, no, what I'm saying is true. And she's like, no, they're out there. And I was like, and she goes, well, what's your point? I said, my point is people move on. I don't know where, like a child, I was like, I don't know where they go, but they don't stay here. And boy, was I right. Like, when I go in those stores now, I look around, I'm like, no, this is for a season. This is not forever. Not at the store level anyway. I'm sure there's someone high and mighty in an office, but we'll call them buyers and sellers.
Passing through, yes.
Yeah. Anyhow.
Yeah.
So you got the job, I take it.
I did. I definitely got the job. And going back to part of this is that, so the White House also, they did give me the opportunity to also assist with some of the buying. And so like, when I mean, they gave me like so many opportunities there that once I got like once I got into the industry I was in, I felt like a greater sense of like confidence being able to like navigate and do things. You know what I mean? So working there
Gotcha.
definitely, yeah, it really gave me like confidence in that interview because I felt like I wasn't just like, oh, I was just doing, customer service. I had like all this experience that they had like given me an opportunity to have that I was able to like bring to help get the job. Um, and so that started in 2000. So that started in 2000 was when I began. And yeah, I started out in customer service. And then I moved up to, from there, it led me to, because I was one of the stronger customer service, reps.
Uh-huh.
They started asking me to do like special projects. Like they wanted me to assist with like customer complaints that go to like the office of the president,
Oh, wow.
and not the president of the United States, of course,
No,
president of the company at the
Stop.
time.
Yeah.
I know. I'm just messing around. I just have to throw that out there. And so, yeah, so I started taking those and like, just helping to clear up some of those complaints and fix those things. And then we all got laid off. We all found out one day, like, hey, like we all found out we were getting laid off. And that was like a very scary time for me because at this point, like I now, I have my son. He's now a couple of years old at this point, and I'm just like, okay, what am I going to do? And so one of the departments, this was the ironic part, is one of the departments that I had to deal with. I had to interface with different leaders at the time. And at time I would have to be, have requirements from them in order to resolve these issues that I was having in the complaint department. And sometimes that meant that I had to boss them around, which they didn't take very well to.
Oh.
So we get laid off, and then they start interviewing to see like who they can bring back. You know what I mean? And it ends up being one of the people that I had to work with. It ends up being one of the people that I had to work with in regards to a specific complaint. And they didn't hire me. They had remembered their experience with me and they did not want to bring me back. And I later found that out.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I thought like, oh my goodness, like I'm going to be without a job. I have to now go looking at like, something different to get into. And so I was out of work for about 2 months. And then somebody who remembered me from another department called me in and they were like, hey, I remember like the work you did and I really want you to come and work for like our dispatch department. And I was like, okay, I hadn't found anything else at that point. So I took it. I was like, yes, I will absolutely come back. I came back to work, went hard at work and just did what I do, which is always just kind of like dive into my work and just, head down and trying to just do a good job and be a good employee. And usually that's what, ended up leading me to like all these other opportunities. Is just, I tend to come in, I'm, usually like, just trying to establish relationships at that point and just, trying to do my work. And another department, takes notice of that.
Gotcha.
And they asked me to come. Yeah. So they asked me to come and join. And this is just dispatch. This is just a department that basically when a field tech is needed, you're on the radio, just kind of like dispatching them out to go to different appointments and things of that nature. So that's all we're doing all day long is kind of just managing the schedules of these techs, managing their rollout to these appointments, and also, them coming back in the evening. So that's all we're doing all day there. And this other department reaches out to me to ask me to be a part of the NOC. And the NOC was kind of like the network operations center.
Oh,
so
okay.
Essentially, yeah. So that was my window into something completely different that I was not expecting. That was the catalyst and the thing that led me to where I am today specifically.
Gotcha.
And so I started working in that department, and it was monitoring. We began to monitor like the network and monitoring like network traffic and things of that nature. Just something I hadn't done. I had no experience. I'm not a technical person by nature. I'm definitely more of a creative,
Right. Yeah. Well, with fashion as your
with that,
what you started
absolutely.
with. Yeah. No,
absolutely.
definitely. That's more on the creative side.
So coming into this side of it, I had to learn like different ticketing systems and actually like get into more of the tech lingo and kind of like be in an environment where people who did come with technical backgrounds question like why I was there. And the reason why I was there, like I said, is just like the relationships I had built and kind of like just working hard. And that was the premise that I got hired on into that department. And so
how long had you been with the company at this point?
At that point, I was probably only there for about, I think I was in dispatch like 2 years before I moved over to that department.
I gotcha.
I was there for about 2 years. Yeah. So right at about like 2005.
Oh,
right
okay.
About 2000. Yeah.
So
about
I
2005.
knew you by then. Okay.
Yes, you did. Yes.
Yeah.
And so I, worked in that department and just did the best that I could. And then they told us that they were merging with another company. And so I was like, here we go again. I'm going to go through another layoff at this point. And so they made us like reapply for our positions as their transition because that other company had a network operations center as well. And so you had to kind of apply to get there. And so I applied for the position. And I remember my husband at the time, I didn't know he was my husband then, but he was also working there and he applied and he had like a technical background, just, a very smart guy, college educated, also technical. I was like, okay, he's going to get it. I'm not going to get it. And I remember him going like, no, let's, just get in there, do your best in the interview. You can do this. You've been doing this work this whole time and you're doing a great job. Like he was just such an encouragement to me.
Your small backpack while he was telling you this? That's an inside joke for everybody.
He might have been.
When Mr. Ples Crawford, her husband, who was on an earlier episode, was courting Miss Stella, he would often carry her backpack as though it was his backpack when she would come over into the house, part of his gentlemanly duties, if that's a word. So that's why I say that. I used to always make fun of him with his little backpack on his arm. But anyhow, go ahead. Sorry.
Please do note that Mr. Crawford is 6'3.5", maybe.
Oh, you don't. Yeah, no, he is not a man that carries. I don't know what it. He doesn't have a man bag. I'll put it that way. At least I don't think he does.
He is 6'3.5". At the time, he might have been. What do you say, Keith? About like 220, maybe like about 220.
Yeah.
This was a miniature pink Hello Kitty backpack. And,
yeah, I thought it was pink. I wasn't sure. I was like, no, don't say pink. You might be exaggerating. Yeah, it's a little bag. That's how I knew. That's how Kay and I, my wife, that's how we knew. Because they were, I don't remember. It's fuzzy. But no, we're just friends. We're really good friends. And I'm like, shut up. Come on. I've had friends and I don't carry their bags. Like, no, if you're a female friend of mine, you're a dude to me. I might sock you. No, he was not socking Stella. Let me stop. Anyway.
No, he damn sure was not socking you. But so he used to carry that backpack. But yes, he was definitely just a huge encouragement. He always like believed in me. I would always underestimate myself, and he was always there to be like, nope, you can do this, And so we both got it. We both ended up getting the position, and we were onto this, new company and working in the network operations center. And at a later time, my husband did exit that department when he decided that he wanted to date me officially.
Oh, yeah.
He did exit that so that it would never be in conflict of our aspirations. And
is that why he did it? Or maybe, I guess he had to. Oh, wow. I don't remember that part of it. Huh. Or if he went over that much of it. But
no, yeah, he spoke to my boss and told our boss that.
Wow.
Like, he was like, I am interested in pursuing her, and I can't do that with us working at the same place.
Oh, no, I don't remember that. Wow.
Yeah.
Mr. Romance.
I know. Like, he actually
Ronnie
told
Romance.
her because he admired her so much. She was a great leader. She was an absolute great leader. And taught us so much, and he didn't want to leave her with not understanding why he was leaving. And so he just told
Gotcha.
her that, like, yes, like, we are friends, but I do want to take that to another level, and I want to date her. And in order to do that, I can't be here. Um, and so, yeah, so he left and went to a different part of the company. And then I stayed there and continued to grow and work. And then I was asked to apply for a supervisor position. And at the time, I was not looking to be in leadership. I was just doing my work. They would give me additional projects, and I just kept hard at what I was doing. I was doing what I always do. Like, anything that I do, I will dive in and just do it the best that I can.
I got you.
And so they asked me to interview for a supervisor's position, and I got it. And it upset a lot of people at that time, because I got, I guess, hazed. Like, I had
Hazed.
people. Oh yeah, I had people coming into work, like, on purpose, like coming in out of dress code, like, as kind of like
Oh,
to
yeah.
challenge me, like on purpose, to challenge me on, like, my
I
very
hate
first day.
that. That's people.
Oh, oh yeah,
Unfortunately, that's people. I hate that.
it was, and it was hard because they just didn't understand. Why did I get it over them? They had been there longer than me. They had been there, and I couldn't explain it. I just did the best I could in the interview. I was the one selected, and as soon as I was, like I said, it's just, I had folks coming in, like, just, like, falling asleep that same night, like, just on purpose to show. And then
Wow.
I remember the VP coming to me and telling me, he was like, and this is why you were picked. He was
Hmm.
like, if this is what they did when they didn't get the job, it speaks to their integrity and character.
Exactly. I was just gonna say, with what you're saying, like, you keep overcoming obstacles in your story and growing, moving on, another position, promotion, I should say, or shifting to a different department, whatever it may be. What I mean, it's easy to say, okay, that's just who I am or whatever. But what was the driving force? Was it your son? Was it something to prove for yourself? Was it something based on, earlier in life, maybe someone that influenced you? Um, you know, what do you think that was that gave you that grit that kept you moving forward, where most people, when I shouldn't say most, where some people would just go, hey, I got somewhere to work. It's good enough for me. This wasn't forced on you. It doesn't sound like. These are things that you went out for and achieved. What,
Yeah.
what, is that you're just what you would, I do not like things like someone saying, oh, you have a gift or you're just naturally talented. No, people have to work at things. Now, some people have to work harder than
Absolutely.
others, but what do you think that is about you that you were different from those people? Like, what would you say? You know what I mean? Like, if you were to, what would you say? I'll just leave it at that.
I would say it's a layered question. So there were lots of things working together to make that all happen. The
I see.
first thing I'm going to say is that me having the wisdom I do now, because I'm a person of faith, is knowing that, like, God had his hand on me.
Exactly.
God orchestrated. When I look back, I can see exactly the path that he laid out for me, that he had his hand on me the entire time. The other pieces were that, yes, of course, I had to take care of my son. I knew I had a responsibility. He had a wonderful father, a responsible father, and we had a great relationship. So I did have, like, support, like, financially, as well. But it took both of us. You know what I mean? We were both being responsible and taking care of our son. And then the other part was, my mother was an extremely hard worker. Both of my parents were. So that work ethic was just built in me. That work ethic came from my parents showing me, us doing chores every weekend and just always having a heart to work.
So these were the influences that kind of built you as a foundation, work
Yes.
ethic wise. I get it.
Yes,
I get it.
very much so. Very much so. And then the other part of it was just being insecure, like being insecure because I didn't go to college. And so I would get into these tech environments, and a lot of my peers were like college educated, people that were like, to me, so smart. I felt like inferior to them, and so I felt like I have to work hard. I have to show my worth here, because I don't have, my accomplishments are not on paper. So I have to show my work by like showing the example of like what I can do by putting in my work.
I'm sure a therapist wouldn't agree with what I'm about to say, but I don't care because I'm not a therapist. And we're free on this podcast. We don't have any sponsors as of yet, so I can say what I want to say. I dig it. I dig using insecurity as a weapon, as a tool, as a driving force. I think that's a very honest statement. I think a lot of people use their insecurity and don't even realize it. When you really sit down and chew on it, and I'm not talking to you, but people out there, I think a lot of people do, because it's your insecurity that will make you go, shoot, like they're going to know who I really am, or they're going to know I don't feel I'm good enough. So I'm going to overcompensate and try to achieve. I mean, if you're truly lazy, then you're not doing any of this, but I can totally identify with what you're saying. Those insecurities, using those, if you can tap into that and use that as a driving force and be aware of it, you can be very dangerous success-wise. I mean that in a good way, because for the people who are overly confident or feel entitled, they don't have that drive. They don't feel they have to. Yeah. They feel they've already arrived, and no one in this life has arrived. Not yet. There's always another level. So that insecurity, it's interesting that you say it that way, that you kind of used it as a driving force. At least maybe I'm paraphrasing.
No, that's accurate.
But no, that's awesome. That's cool.
That's accurate. And so this is the point. So once I got to that point, I'm now supervisor of this department. I have peers that I'm, continuously comparing myself to. And I'm also not sure at this point. I'm starting to question myself, like, wow, like everybody has a thing. Like at this point, like, of course, like all my friends are college graduated. They all, went to Howard University. They're all graduated. One's like a nurse. One is working for the city. The other one is in business, but everybody knows like what they're doing, what their focus is, what their career is going to be. Mm-hmm. And I could not figure out what my thing was. I was like, what am I doing? Like,
how old were you at this point?
At this point, I'm probably like in my early 30s. I'm in my early 30s at this point.
You hear that, young people? It doesn't stop. There's no, I asked that question for a reason, because I've done the math already, and I just asked it just to draw a point. It doesn't stop. There is no storybook life for most people where, I was 27 and, it's bad for the South because where I live now. No, what I mean is like, there's people out here that they're on their second home. Not that they own two homes, but they're playing the mortgage game. And they got their first house I know a guy, one of my coworkers, got first home when I was 24. And I'm like, how? Like in California, I know a lot of people that are in their 40s that don't own a home and are happy to rent just because things are so expensive. But my point is it doesn't stop. Even in your 30s, some people are still not even trying to figure it out, because I feel like you had it figured out, but you're still grinding is my what I'm trying to say. Interesting.
Yeah. I was good at working hard, but nothing else. Like I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what my purpose was, what my skill, what is my thing? You know what I mean? Like I'm not in fashion, which is where I think I should be. And I'm not, and I'm too far from it at this point. Like I'm too invested in this, telecommunications industry. I'm now like, 7 years into this at this point. And I am just like, and then I was speaking to my now husband, of course, and I'm asking him, I'm like, I don't know what I'm good at. I don't know what I am doing. Like I see everyone else around me and they're, into IT, or they want to be an engineer, or they're going into these different aspects of engineering. And I don't know what I'm doing here. You know what I mean? I'm working hard and I'm a supervisor, but I don't know what I'm doing here. He was like, you honestly don't know? And I said, I don't. And he said, you're a leader. And I was like, and it was like mind blowing to me. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, everything that you get into, you figure out how to problem solve, how to direct it, how to develop people around you and encourage people around you and lead people. People follow you. He was like, a lot of why you got tapped to do things was because people saw that leadership in you. And it just kind of like blew my mind, because then it all started to make sense to me.
You know why it blew your mind? It blew your mind.
Why?
That tool I just spoke of is a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
What powered you forward also mentally held you back. And I only say that because I have the same thing. Not necessarily in career with what I do, but just in life in general, probably worse. It holds you back because while that keeps you on the grind, you never look up long enough to see where you've made it.
That's correct.
And when it takes someone on the outside, and I think you're truly blessed to have a partner that is that person or can be that person that taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, you're great because you do this. A lot of people don't have that. That's a great thing to have. I mean, when you hear it from the outside, it's like, what? Me? No, and that's that insecurity speaking, because you're just like, no, I'm nowhere near where I know I should be, where I believe I should be. But, and that's what keeps us propelled forward. It's like, I know me and Plez always have jokes, and we have for probably 30 years. I mean, neither one of us has ever been severely overweight, but we've always almost like never, and neither one of us have professionally wrestled. And I don't mean Hulk Hogan style. I mean like in college or nothing. But we're always like, what are you at right now? Like, what's your weight at or whatever? And it's like, well, I could stand to lose about 10 pounds. Like, we keep that mentality because that's, in a weird way, that's what keeps us in shape. Like the idea that I personally don't know what satisfaction looks like. I try to work on that. Just in my personal life, like just, and not in weight, but, just in life in general, I try to work on being satisfied with certain things or being content, I guess. I don't know if those two are the same thing actually, but, if I get comfortable, if I get too content, then I get sloppy mentally in certain things that I'm working toward. So I rely on those outside sources to tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, I think you're doing this. Like, I mean, this podcast, like when I say, and I tell people, hey, leave a comment, all that stuff, every compliment is a shock. Like, that's the zone I live in. Like, this isn't my career. I'm doing this for fun, but just mentally, every compliment is a shock. Like, for real? You really think? No way. Like, and I know to them, they're like, oh, all right, fool, you're trying to be extra. No, I'm dead serious. But yeah, I get what you're saying. So you realized you were a leader. That had to be an awesome moment to, I don't know if it was a moment, probably more of a gradual aha.
It is. It's definitely because like, just like what you said, how like it's hard to take compliments because you beat yourself up so much that even when people see you as someone like positive or confident, you feel like it's imposter syndrome because you know that
there you go.
In the background, you are constantly like the first one to like undermine yourself.
Oh yeah.
And so
I'm my worst critic. Yeah, no. Glutton for punishment in that department. No. People would probably call 911 if they heard what really goes on in my head. That's for real. I mean, shoot, I was a fat little boy, be pinching my thighs going, look at you, fat boy. Look at you. I'm in 8th grade, like, see, chunky. You got a pool party coming up. Yeah, look at you. Like, I totally, I get that. I get that.
We are our worst abusers. Like I
Mm-hmm.
would say, you know what I mean? Like I always tell people, I'm like you don't realize that when you're saying that stuff, like you're abusing yourself, and what you're telling yourself is what you're going to manifest if you keep telling yourself that, you know?
And you won't
So
have
it's
joy.
no, you won't have joy. It'll steal it from you. And you won't get to enjoy when people do give you compliments or when you achieve something and just kind of like maybe sit in those wins,
Yeah,
as they
no.
happen, and
You
they don't
only
have to be
enjoy it
big
and
wins.
yeah, you
Yeah.
only enjoy it, at least for myself, in hindsight. Like when you look back and you go, I was doing all right. Dang.
Yeah.
Oh, we could have stayed an extra day in Vegas that time because it didn't matter anyway. I ended up quitting that job or, whatever it
Right.
is. Like, hey, wow, it's too late now. I mean, I know for me, it's funny we're talking about this because I did kind of make a note. I don't remember why I made a note about this, but, you know, like what we're talking about, like even in college, like especially in college, high school, college, I always had like, I won't say, I don't think I had, I know I didn't have anxiety, but it was more like a focus or a stir in my heart. Like, don't get nobody pregnant. Number one, don't, and you better pick your career. You bet. That's kind of like one of the driving forces for this podcast. Like, you better pick your career. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? Like, it was you watching after school cartoons, and it was, there were commercials for colleges or ITT Tech and all these different. Like, it
Yep.
was all about what you're gonna do, and all anybody
Yeah.
knew. Even the thugs I went to school with was, well, you got to go to college. Like, I mean, I don't know what I'm gonna go for, but I'm gonna go to college. Like,
Right.
and I knew, well, at least for me and my friends, like, don't get nobody pregnant. Don't have no kids at 18, 19 years old. I mean, if it happens, you're going to be working at the grocery store for the rest of your life. Yeah. But as a result, during college, I couldn't truly enjoy myself. Something like I worked retail, and those hours, like you'd have Tuesday and Thursday off or something, or
Yes.
Tuesday and
Yes.
Sunday. Well, I got a Sunday off. I didn't even enjoy it. I thought about it today, just thinking, because every time I have a guest, I always think about my own life, and a lot of things parallel, obviously, because we all live
Yeah.
in this nation, most of us. And those moments, I would look around at other people. Like, I played at a frat. I was in a frat, Pikes, Pike KA, go Pikes. I would look around, and these dudes would all be having a time of their lives. I was thinking, now I wasn't doing anything about it, but I was thinking, dude, what are you gonna do? Like, you're undecided in your major. I had a major, and I went over this in the podcast. I won't go over that story again. Realized that's probably not what I wanted to do. And it's based off of one class, one speaker that came to speak to us, which was dumb. Should never base your life choices off of one day. But I did. So I went through like a 2-year period of not knowing what I was going to school, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And it was like really stressful for that time period. No kids, no wife and all that, thank God. But not to get too deep, but this was 2001. My grandfather had just passed like 2 weeks before 9/11 happened. And
Sorry.
yeah, no, he had to go at some point, but he didn't have to go back then. He died of a bad way to go from years of doing construction and things. I believe it was asbestos that got into his lung, and he got cancer.
Oh, no.
And it's terrible. People out there can believe me if you want. Stella and I both are believers. When I say that, we're Christians, but not just Christians as in, I go to church and this is tradition and do the do's, don't do the don'ts. No, as in a relationship, a walk with the Lord.
Yes.
And I was at that time back then too. Although I will admit I was in college, and again, it's not about sinning necessarily. It's about a relationship. But at that time, I was not dialed in like I am now. So, if there was an emergency, in my mind of, I can't make rent, or, I got in a car accident, I don't want to tell my parents, that's when you pray. And they pray every day. What do you think I am, religious? Like back then, that was my mind frame. So anyhow, stressing about this major. And I was working retail for the Leathertown guys in Valencia at the time, and Valencia, California. And I say that for a reason. So went to sleep. This is probably, like a month after my grandfather had passed away. And the world was in an interesting place at that time. Our country was anyway, with 9/11 already happening. And, for anyone who was around back then and was an adult or somewhat an adult, it was an interesting time. Like a lot of things were changing security wise, all that good stuff. Anyway, went to bed one night, and my grandfather, so I grew up in LA, right literally across the street from the Coliseum and USC. Go Trojans, even though they lost yesterday. Stupid. Man, they almost won. Anyway, but I grew up literally next door to my grandmother and grandfather, and it was very close. They were like a second set of parents to my brother and I and my sister. And so when he passed, for me, that was the closest person to me that actually, I mean, I knew he was going to die. He was an old man, but he wasn't that old. He was like in his 70s when he passed. But that was the first one. So it kind of, I was all right. I mean, I was in my 20s, but it had never happened before. So all I know is I went to sleep. I'm just laying the tracks, folks. Went to sleep, and I had a dream. I call it a dream. And I was at the time stressing about my major, and I'm in the dream. I'm standing. I can still tell you the picture, like just the filter on the lens. If you were to watch this on TV, everything was amber, like bronze. Don't ask why. It just was. And I'm standing there in the store, right at the front door of the store where I would stand and chat with whoever was working with me, watching the people walk by. But the person I was chatting with was my grandfather. And I knew that in the dream that he had already died. And I was like, whoa. I was like, man, because I was really stressing about my major. And he didn't. I've had this happen to me 2 times in my life. And I know it's already written that to be absent from the body means to be present with the Lord. So not saying, woo, it's a ghost, but because I don't believe in ghosts. That's familiar spirits, comes from the devil. Anyway, let me stop. So I'm in this dream, and I'm literally just vomiting all of these explanations of what I could do major wise. And I'm trying to tell him, because I'm aware that, oh man, I haven't checked in with you in a minute. Let me tell you what's been going on with me. And the entire time he had this smile, this smirk, on his face. And he kind of looked, anybody who knows me, I'm all mixed up. So my grandfather, he kind of looked like a cross between Ricky Ricardo and acted like Jackie Gleason. I know there's a lot of young, who the hell? Who's Jackie Gleason? Yeah. But he just did. So he's standing there with that face, and he's kind of smirking like he already had the answer. But he didn't say one word. It happened with him, and it happened with my grandmother. It's almost like, and I know I sound crazy. Hopefully I don't lose any listeners, but it was almost like technology we don't have yet here. He didn't have to speak. And I don't know if I can explain this totally, but in that instance, he didn't have to speak, but his face told me that he understood everything I was telling him, and he knew much more. The way he looked at me, I could still see his eyes. He said it without having to move his mouth. Almost like the movie The Shining, if anyone's ever seen it, how they could look at each other, the little boy and the old black man, Scatman Carruthers, could look at each other and they could talk. And he said, "You're going to be just fine." And I was like, but how can that be? Like, I was still fighting it, going, how could that be? Because if I don't pick my major, I came out here, wanting to do sports medicine. I thought I was going to work with the Lakers and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, just reality was hitting me. And he just kept looking, and he was saying, like, you're going to be just fine. And I bring that up because like you're talking about that, what propels you forward, that, that insecurity, and like me not being able to enjoy anything, it gave me such a calmness. I was no longer worried about my major. And I ended up going into real estate. What's funny, that was '01. I ended up meeting the guy that I went to work for doing real estate less than a year later, where I met my wife, and my life just went totally in another direction. And it's funny, again, not to get too deep, but I never forgot that dream. Never forgot it.
Wow.
I can tell. I mean, but not so much the dream. I think about his face, because I remember at that time, I'm like, how could he be so calm, knowing what I'm up against? And I'm not going to say I had a dream with God, for you non-believers out there. Oh, you spoke to God. I'm not saying that necessarily. What I'm saying is there was such a peace on his face of your life. You're worried about something that not so much has already been decided, but I already see what you're up against. You're going to be just fine. And it's funny.
Wow.
There hasn't been a time that I haven't gone to, not to get all sappy, but signing the paperwork for our first home, or going to Disney World, and, everybody knows how much that costs. All of these things. I'm like, what did he see? I always, not every day, but in those moments, those kind of, wow, this is pretty big moments. What did he already see that this looked ridiculous to him? Like a kid with his shoes on the wrong foot. Like, they won't let me into elementary school because I can't put my shoes on the right foot. That must have been how I looked to him in that moment, because he already saw so much. In hindsight, I look back now and I go, oh, wow, we were just fine. My gosh, like, for all I know, again, technology that doesn't exist here on Earth yet. He's looking at me. I didn't have no kids or no wife. He's looking at me pushing my kids on a swing. I have no idea what he saw at that point, or what he was told at that point. But it's something that sticks with me, and me working to be content with my life currently. I kind of lean on that dream from time to time and go, remember that face whenever you're kind of feeling funky, or, oh boy, they're talking about this at work. I'm just like, well, he had that face. He didn't look troubled. Like, ooh, I know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're going to do. Like, there was nothing like that. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe he's looking at something that hasn't happened yet. I don't know. Maybe I end up being the real estate mogul that, like, you have fashion. Mine is owning a lot of apartment buildings, and, being able to travel and do what I want to do, because,
being an actor.
I'm
just throwing that out there.
Yeah, no, boy, that would be really cool. That's funny. I've had some. Plaz knows a lot of these stories. I've had some funny in the acting department. Definitely, that insecurity hurt. Like, you can use it as a tool. You can, but as far as those first encounters or trying something new, it is nothing but death. Oh my gosh. I had a lady, I remember I was in 3rd Street Promenade. This was like '03. Yeah, it had to be like '03, early 20s. And I'm at 3rd Street Promenade in the Adidas store. And this lady,
that takes me back.
Yeah. And this lady, I was off because I was working retail. I was off, and, I did a lot of stuff by myself. So I just go to 3rd Street Promenade, just walk around, just shop, whatever. And I'm in there just looking around. And this older lady, she's probably 30. This older lady was like, oh my gosh. And, like in California, I haven't seen it here in the South, but back then, I mean, probably because there was no real online presence back then. But in California, I came across people that would say, hey, have you ever thought about acting? Or have you ever thought, like, that low self-esteem? And I was a fat kid. So, like, that was, even though I wasn't chubby then, that low self-esteem sticks with you, you would get people who would say things like, hey, you should act, or you should do it. And yeah, you want me to join your thing so I can pay for classes, whatever. But this lady, it was real. And it's funny. You young people, just go for it. I didn't have a dang on thing to lose. I'm working at Express. And she goes, do you have, oh, that's what it was. Yeah. She goes, do you have a commercial agent? And I was like, huh? Like, I didn't even know what commercial real estate was, let alone a commercial. Oh, she means for acting in commercials, there's a separate entertainment agent for that. I had no idea. So I kind of faking. Yeah, me either. I was trying to act like I knew because I was in Santa Monica. That's where, not probably 3 blocks away from your movie theater in Westwood. And she goes, do you have a commercial agent? And I kind of laughed. I said, no. I'm like, lady, I live in an apartment, not even 800 square feet with Plez. And I go, no, I sure don't. And she goes, all right, that's right. I said, not at the moment. She goes, are you serious? And I was like, very. And she goes, oh my gosh, have you ever thought about doing commercial work or acting? And I was like, here we go. It's going to be one of those schools where they try to, she must be a recruiter. And I go, no. I said, well, and there's a bit of me that obviously I wanted to. I said, yeah. I said, but I don't want to take any of the classes and stuff. Because there's just like those Primerica people who will not be a sponsor on this podcast. And I'll say that. Those people raided the Valencia Mall forever. Never. So annoying. Anyway, I put my name on that. I said, I don't want to do any class. She goes, no. Oh, let me tell you whatever her name was. I don't remember. She was there with her husband. And she goes, can I give you my, some dude, can I give you his number? I used to do a lot of work. I was a model, when I was younger, and I still do some stuff for like catalogs or whatever. She goes, but he owes me dinner. If you give him a call, he owes me dinner. I'm like, he owes you dinner if I give him a call? I was like, this is low self-esteem, Keith. He used to pinch his stomach before the pool party in the 7th grade. I'm like, what? I said, this is far out. This is too much. And I go, yeah, sure. She goes, now he was doing a lot of the casting for a movie called Red Dragon, which was the sequel to Hannibal, Hannibal, whatever, Silence of the Lambs, I'm trying to say.
Yep.
And I said, okay. And she goes, legit guy, New York guy. And she's like telling me this whole story. I'm just holding on to the number like, oh my gosh, this is like the movies. And I go, no pun intended. And I go, okay. She goes, give him a call. Tell him that, we'll call her Jen. Tell him that Jen gave you the number, blah, blah, blah. Oh my gosh, you are adorable. I can tell just from the way you're talking to me. Oh boy, he owes me big time because you're just walking around Santa Monica. And I was like, yeah. So then this is all low self-esteem. So I'm gassed. I bought some shoes I didn't even need. Well, that ended up being something I still do. But I was like, oh yeah, I think I'll take these Adidas because I didn't want to seem broke because they're older and established and they're just buying shoes, not even thinking about it. I was like, oh yes, I'll take these shell toe Adidas. And so I walk out the store feeling like $1 million. I wasn't even worried about my bank account at that time because I'm like, I'm gonna be rich, I'm gonna be famous. And I came home and I told a friend of mine, we'll just say, and that person, stupid person, said, what? They hit me up for that stuff all the time. I don't believe in all that crap. Nothing gonna come of it. And I was like, you know what? You might be right. And then like 2 days later, I said, you know what? No, dang on, I'm gonna call him. So I just called the guy. Boy, this dude. And now being an adult, I know you catch people in certain moods, they're going to be a certain way. I called the guy And I explained it just like the lady said. And he goes, yeah. She told me about you. Like, that was his demeanor. He was like, yeah. She told me about you.
Yeah.
So what's your story, kid? And I was like, I'm just hitting you up. I had no notes, nothing written down of what I was going to say. And he just chewed me up and spit me out. He was like, yeah, well, I tell you what, just, here's my address. Just come on down, whatever. And I go, okay. And told that same person that I told before, I was like, hey, he said, actually, come on down. And the stupid person was like, I wouldn't even waste my time with that ish. I wouldn't even, it's probably just fake. I mean, why would you even? And I was like, you know what? You're right. Never went. Never went.
No.
Like it never went. I had nothing to lose. I had nothing but time on my hands. No kids, no nothing. It's just funny. Self-esteem and insecurity are, like I said, I say all that to say it's a double-edged sword. You can use it to your benefit if you can keep it under control and realize you do have self-worth and value. But if it's just kind of all willy-nilly, like it was for me in summer of 2003, it can be your worst nightmare. It really can. Let me ask you, what would you tell little Stella, little kid Stella? Wait, let me ask you, were you born here in the States? Because you're from Belize, right?
Correct. I was born in Belize.
Okay.
And I came over here in 1981. So I was 11 at the time when I came here.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
What would you tell that little girl today?
I would let her know that she's going to be just fine and to trust her instincts. Like we call it our instincts, but I think that those of us who are Christian know it's the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It really is the Holy Spirit. You know
it really is. Yeah.
And every time I trusted myself, like I know there's been so many times in my career, and one example is me comparing myself to my peers. Like I said, like it's just something that I don't think I stopped doing this until like a couple of years ago. Like that's how recent this is. And the second I would feel like, I need to do more, like I'm already working hard, I've gotten different promotions. I'm now up, in management at this very large company. And I was still questioning myself. And I still had to like say to myself, trust your instincts, do what you do best. Like I had to say to myself that I came to the realization that like, I don't have any competition. My competition is the better version of myself.
There you go.
Like that is like, I can never be these other people. Even if I got, like, say I, became an engineer, or I got these certifications, or I went to college and had every degree you could think of, I'm still never going to be that person because God only made one of me. So the only person I'm competing against is myself, and nobody is in that lane. Once I started operating in that, everything changed for me, because then I wasn't worried about anybody around me, when they were going to move, if they were going to get in front of me. It didn't matter, because at that point, I truly trusted God to like open every single door exactly in the time that he wanted those doors to open for me. And once I started doing that, things just started to completely continue to like change and evolve for me. Then I saw like how many steps ahead of me I was going to get to, and just trusting in God's time for it to happen. You feel
that you would have been, if you had told that little girl that and she took that advice, this is probably a stupid question. Do you feel things would have went different for you? I'll put it this way, would have been a much smoother ride mentally?
Yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know that I would have wanted her to know that then, because I think every single thing that I went through made me who I am. And I know that like I'm able to use those things as testimony to connect with other people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So all the good, bad, trauma, all of that, those are all who made me who I am.
That's true.
And that so it's true. Like if you so the only thing I can tell her is just keep God present. Because if you do that, it doesn't mean he's going to protect you from all the trauma you're going to go through, but it's all going to make sense to you later on and what he's going to do with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the piece I walk away with is just, you know, he still allows me, and even in this work environment where you have to be careful, you know, when you are a Christian, you have to be careful that you're not, because of course, like things you should not speak about at work are like,
oh yeah,
you know, like, yeah, like gender, religion, like all of that, you know, but I'm still able to like apply it into how I do my work.
Yeah.
And I still trust in him, and I still can be authentic and genuine and connect with people. But part of that is just being vulnerable and allowing people to know that, like, I'm not perfect. I don't have this, and maybe I shouldn't be here, but I am, and I deserve to be here just as much as you do. Right. Because I've put in the work and I have the experience, and I have, like, I'm now able to, at the end of it, see that, like, that creativity was really the piece of fashion designing that I thought I was missing. But I'm using that creativity, designing the workflows and the business functions of like what we're doing. So that same skill set that I wanted to like please and feed that I thought I was missing, I'm actually applying it to the environment that I never thought I could. I didn't see it that way. I didn't see a creative being in engineering.
Right.
And now I see, like, no, it's actually why I'm so good at my job is because I am able to come up with ideas that differ from the very people who I think I need to be exactly like.
Yeah.
And that's not saying, and that's not like a knock for like anybody at all. That's not what that is at all. I just meant that,
no,
like,
it's who you
I'm
are.
I'm not the science math person. And generally in engineering, that is who's going to be there. You know what I mean?
Right.
But being able to apply that creativity to strategize business and to make decisions and to be successful, I am every single day getting to be creative in what I'm doing because of this dynamic environment.
Right.
So
you bring something to the table that no one else has. And I think a strength for anyone listening is realizing what that difference is. And it's not just in career, but in life in general. Yes. I know it's true for my job. Despite any, you know, I have friends that I've sent videos to of me doing woodwork and all that stuff. I was not that guy in California. I just do it because why not? I mean, I wasn't a goal-oriented person till I won't say when. It's a little embarrassing. But what I bring to the table with my job is my point. My job is a technical job, a lot of hands-on, a lot of technical work. So the personality, and this isn't a stereotype, it is what it is. These guys are not talkers. And they kind of don't like talkers. They were the people in high school that they probably weren't the most popular person. And they found something they can do for a living where they don't have to talk to people. But guess what? I like to talk to people. So since I've been in the career that I'm in, I never once, this is my own arrogance, I guess, if I'm airing out my laundry, I never once felt I wanted to be like these people at all. I thought I did realize, no, my gift is that I can do both. I can do that. My brother's this way as well. I can do the technical aspect of the job, and I can talk to someone. My mom was the same way. My uncle's the same way. I can look at you. I can see you speaking to someone else, size you up, and know exactly what angle I need to come at in speaking to you. And I don't have to be fake and pretend I like to go hunting and all this other stuff. I can still be me, but I know what spin to put on certain things. I know how to talk to people. It's the reason I was good with real estate and things of that nature. They'd have guys, I used to piss these dudes off. That same office manager that will remain nameless and his crew of cronies that did all his leasing for him. He'd pay him $300 every other month. Insane. This guy, I didn't know he had a relationship with the dude I'm about to speak about. I'm just calling people, asking if they'd entertain an offer on their properties. And there's a guy. I won't say his name. I don't know if I should legally, but I'll tell you this. His company is responsible. It's the leading meat, and I'm not joking. His company supplies Costco and other companies, but mainly Costco, with all of their meat. If you've ever bought any meat from Costco, you've bought it from his company. This guy is beyond rich. He was so rich that, and I didn't know any of this when I was talking to him on the phone. He gonna talk like this. Yeah. Hey, what kind of deals you have for me today, Keith? He was this Israeli guy, old Israeli guy, real cool. He would tell me, you know what I did when everybody during the recession, when everybody's losing their homes? And I go, yeah. And he goes, he went to Calabasas, saw these homes that were worth 15, 20 million. That was his range, he said. And he bought those homes and would rent them out. Obviously, if you own a $15 million home, you're a millionaire, right? He rented these homes out to the millionaires. He didn't need the money for these deals. It was basically like me asking him if he wanted to trade any of his baseball cards, because he made his money off of the meat. This man was a probably a couple hundred millionaire. I didn't know any of this, but because I am who I am, even in real estate, and I knew how to talk to people, and I just naturally would just talk to the man the same way I'm talking to you. I didn't know, even if I knew who he was, I would never give him that, oh, hello, sir. How are you? I just talked to him like he was a regular dude. And if he didn't want to talk to me like he was a regular dude, then get on. Like, just get off the phone then. Like, I was good. So as a result, This dude would call me, and, every once in a while, this secretary would be like, Keith, I got Levi. Oh, I got so-and-so on the phone. And I go, oh, okay, yeah, I'll take him right now. Let me go back to my desk. And that office manager's like, you have so-and-so on the phone? And I go, yeah. Do you realize who he is? And at that time, I kind of did, but I didn't fully. And he explained his story to me. And I said, oh, no way. And and other people in his group, his sales group, were like, how did he do that? And I was like, and that's when I started realizing, oh, I have something that even in real estate and sales, these guys don't have. They're trying to do it by science of, no, if you ask him this question 5 times, statistics show he will have to answer it this way. I wasn't doing any of that. I was just having a regular conversation. When I apply that to the job I have now, even though it's technical, I've had job offers from our customers. I mean, there's like at least 4 or 5 dudes that try to hand me an application to come back to I would never go back to retail, even in management. Although it does pay very well for Trader Joe's and Sprouts. I don't think I could afford to do that financially. No, that those gifts, they were given to us for a reason. Can we play in the NBA with them? No, that's why we're not there. The Lord puts us. We determine our own lives and have free will, but if we're listening to the Holy Spirit and following what He wants us to do, we still have a choice. But if we're willing to lean into that, what we know in those moments, in those small moments, that phone call that comes that you're scared to take, but you take it and the person says, are you in or you're out? And you say, I'm in. There's power in that. Don't run away from that. You're right. You bring something to the table. And I guess the answer to that question, you kind of aced the test. That was a trick question that I gave you as far as what you would tell little Stella. There's nothing you could tell her because, I mean, outside of, hey, keep your faith strong. You have a son. I have 2 daughters. That is the one thing that I haven't tried to run their lives and what they're going to do. I mean, they are going to be doing something, so I don't let them just chill out. But the one thing I've been adamant about, because I know it's what I was missing growing up, at least as I know it now, was faith. Because I know if you have a foundation in faith, and again, I'm not, for non-believers, I'm not talking about going to a Catholic church, doing the dues, not doing the don'ts, and did it like following rules. I'm talking about a relationship. And I know some people might be turned off by that, but if you're, just hear me out. If you have a foundation in that, you can call it fake, you can call it whatever, storybook, whatever. Is there an advantage to it? What have you got to lose if you choose, to believe? I mean, I've said it before. Like when I was a little kid, I used to want to believe Star Wars was real, or, there was a DeLorean somewhere that time travel, one that we gonna do time travel's coming, man. This is the one thing that I told my kids early on. You keep your faith strong. I have conversations with my daughters, my youngest daughter. We have faith discussions all the time. And I always tell her, I go, if I had your frame of mind, that faith, meeting that lady at 3rd Street Promenade in the Adidas store, that would have been a cakewalk. When that stupid person said, they ain't going to call you, I would have known, this is nothing but the devil. You know what? I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go down to his office. I'm going to let him tell me whatever he's going to tell me. I may get there and I may be interviewing for something totally different than what I knew I was getting there for. I didn't have that kind of faith. I was just taking life as it happened. So yeah, I agree with you on that. Keeping a firm foundation in faith. I think the rest will take care of itself. With little Stella.
Yes.
little Stella. But
another thing I would say too is that I know, like, one piece of advice that anyone listening I'd like to say is, like, if you're still not sure what your thing is, like, ask the people that are closest to you. Ask 2 people at work and ask 2 people at home.
Mm-hmm.
Like what your standout thing is, because half the time it is staring you right in the face and you don't even see it.
Yeah.
And it's just in all the things that you do, it's gonna be reflected.
Yeah.
And the people around you are always gonna know what that thing is.
Yeah. I mean, it does you good to have friends too. Sometimes family, not all of us come from great families. My family's cool. I'm not throwing no shade or nothing. But yeah, ask people, like you said, people in your family, people outside of your family, and look for patterns. Like when I ask friends, hey, you like the podcast? Like I take all criticism, by the way, but look for patterns. If you hear the same thing about yourself over and over, or every third person or every second person, that's something you need to pay attention to and work on. Now, if it's just a one-off, probably not. But yeah, pay attention to patterns within that. If everyone's telling you, well, dude, you're really, really good with people, or you're always helping people, you should go into blah, blah, blah. What do you have to lose? I mean, that person that's, like my daughter, she's 16, but I just don't know what, I'm going to have her on. I told her today, I said, it's one thing to have our perspectives as adults, and this podcast isn't necessarily for children, but it's good to have young people.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, to have young people on that don't know what they want to do.
Absolutely.
It can remind us of where we once were as an adult.
Yes.
And for a young person that's listening in the future, that, hey, you're not alone. I asked you were in grind mode, you were in your 30s,
Yeah.
This is the way it goes. I mean, for most people, not all, we all wanted to move out, get our own place. All of these things start happening so fast in those first couple of years after high school that you compromise your dreams sometimes. You compromise your dreams because, I'm dating myself. You wanted a brand new Mitsubishi Eclipse with the Prelude, with the, oh gosh, what was that car? God, I'm really dating myself, with the tail on it. You wanted blah, blah, blah. And all these things cost money. And the only thing you can do that makes money is, at that age, retail, restaurants. I talk to young people sometimes, and they did what my parents used to warn me of. Don't go somewhere where you're going to make good money at 21, 22. That's not career oriented, like retail or something, because you're going to be trapped. you're not going to be able to afford to go back to school and get your nursing degree or, you know, whatever it is, because, hey, I got to make rent. I chose to pay this $2,000 rent because of this retail job. Now it has to work out, you know, and if you're, that sounds a little sexist. I was going to say, if you're a woman, maybe you can marry somebody with a pretty good job, but at least in the States, in United States, dudes can't say that. I knew I couldn't say that when I was young. I was watching women I worked with at Express get wifed up, and, you know, they're not rich, but hey, tell you what, they got time to go back to school now. They're pushing a stroller back into the store to say hello to everybody. Nobody was coming to sweep Keith off his feet and give him that treatment. Like, I was like, you can call it sexist or whatever. It's the truth. I haven't met anyone who's taking care of a man. It does not work that way. I'm sure they're out there, but I don't know. But anyhow, on that note, we will go ahead and close. I ruined. Oh yeah. Well, nope. We're over an hour and 20. I'm so sorry. so
No,
sorry.
It's fine. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. No, I can go on forever. But you know, like I've told everyone, come back on the podcast. You know, this is a career-based podcast, but you know, as I go along in this, there's people, and I've said this to Plez too, there's people that, you know, you kind of tap, hey, this person could be a regular on the show. Like my daughter, I told her, I said, you know, I have one episode isn't enough a week. Like I have that itch where it's like, I know I could do two. And I have some cool ideas for filling that gap. It won't always be a new guest with a new job. But again, to anyone listening, you know, come on the show. If you're, you know, if you got a different career, something that you think is interesting, or maybe you don't think it's interesting, but that young person might, you know, especially people in law enforcement, first responders. I want to try. I have some that I can get on that go to my church. But again, I know I have friends, sheriffs, Mr. Johnny Gillespie. I have a lot of people that I could shout out right now. But yeah, man, come on the podcast. We'll have a good time. I think if you've listened to past episodes, this is what it's about. This is it. So, you know, don't pull any punches. We just laugh and chat. But Stella, thank you again for your time. I know it's Sunday.
Thank you for having me.
You know, are you folding laundry? I know you told me something.
No,
All I have to do is laundry.
I'm not doing. Yeah. No, I'm not. and that hasn't stopped. Like, Plus was like, ever since you became the senior manager, I was like, no. He's like, can you make me dinner? I'm like, no.
I know.
So it's like a running joke with us.
All right. Well, I'll let you go. Again, thank you so much. And to everybody, drive safe. I know some of you are listening while you're working. Drive safe. Be safe out there, and God bless.